Hey guys, this is video 3, and thank you guys for coming back if you did. I feel like every time that I get on, I ask you guys to bear with me, but like this time I really mean it because I have a headache and I'm on and I really did not want to. I just want to go to sleep, but I'm on a schedule and I'm staying committed, so I'm here. If I look like I'm like kind of out of it, I don't remember last time I had a headache. It's been years, so the devil is working hard right now. But today's topic is going to be friendships and relationships a little bit, because I do feel like they kind of go hand in hand with each other. But before I get started on anything, I want to mention how blessed I am and how grateful I am for the friendships that I did have between, well, just any friendship that I had. Honestly, I feel like I had some amazing friends, and I'm not going to say too much, of course, but I'm going to say enough again for you guys to kind of like understand where I came from and where I am currently. I've had some really good best friends that impacted my life in a huge way, to the point where I don't know where I would have been. And you know, I've mentioned how I was mentally in the past, but I just feel like things would have been 100 times worse without them. So just keep in mind what I was going through at that time, and just imagine if these people that I mentioned, they weren't there. Oh, I don't know what I would have done. But with, you guys know by now, my family's Jamaican, so the Caribbean household, they don't really take friends to like lightly. Like there's not really that much friends that you can introduce them to. Especially if you had a lot of family around. And this is not all Caribbeans, but most Caribbeans, like they just look at friends like bombastic side eye. Like, what are you talking about? So they were not entertaining anything that had to do with any type of friendship. And then also, I told you guys that my mother's side of the family lived in walking distance to each other. So I also didn't see my mom have any friends. She just had like her sister and her cousins, and then my older sister, she had moved out by the time, so it wasn't like I really got to see closely any type of example of how to be a friend or like a true friendship, really. So around, I think my sister and I were in around, like, I want to say second, third grade. Our next door neighbor was with someone who had a daughter that moved in with them, and she ended up going to school with us because we were close in age. So I think we were in third grade, but she was in second grade because she's a year younger than us. And if she was here to tell the story, or she tells the story that when she first moved and started going to school, she did not have the best school experience. She says that we were mean, or kids were mean to her, and they weren't as welcoming. So she initially didn't have a pleasant experience moving in or just coming to our school. But I'm gonna skip to the part where we ended up becoming close, and we became close to the point where she would come over. And when I say next door neighbor, I mean like literally house right next to each other. So she would come over. I think it would start off with like maybe after school, then it would be weekends where she would sleep over, to the point where she ended up like living with us. So it was like one of the best things ever. Just imagine being younger and your best friend living with you. So with my sister and I being twins, and then her being our close friend, it was like we were triplets because we got to do everything together, the three of us. Of course, like my family knows her. She like became super close, so we did everything together. And you know, my parents raised her. Her mom was still there and things like that, but it was like they took her in as if they were her parents as well, and she was their daughter. So you know, church and things like that, everybody knew who she was. And looking back, I'm kind of shocked, but my parents, especially, yeah, my parents are they were cool for that. Like that was super cool of them to do that, and I'm glad that we had that experience. But yeah, we all three used to like share a room. We would just do silly things together, and it was a cool experience. Keep in mind that I didn't really have any type of examples of like what a friend was or how to be a friend, because also technically my next door neighbor is my best friend, yes, but she ended up becoming a sister. So even with that, it wasn't like, okay, I knew how to be a friend or still have that example, because it was like I had an extra sister, basically. So, because that was elementary school. Middle school, of course, I was cool with like a bunch of people, still have my cousins and things like that. But that was a time when I became close with my first guy friend. In the first video, I mentioned how I was like super close with my older brother. So I already knew what it was like to have like a close, I guess, friendship with a guy, but that was my brother. And in middle school, outside of like family, that was like the first guy friend that I ever had. He was, I guess, yeah, he was popular. He played sport. He was like the class clown. So, you know, everybody knew who he was. I was close with this girl, and I guess he had wanted to like talk to her. So he knew that we were close. So he would talk to me to try to talk to her, basically. And that was that's basically what formed our friendship, which is like so funny. And like ever since then, I've been his spokesperson, sort of, kind of. But yeah, we built a friendship off of over that. But we can fast forward to high school, where I became close with, I'm gonna name her T because I don't know if she wants me to mention her name, but I became close with her. And then also, remember how I said I like hated school and I like didn't care for school or whatever. I had to go to summer school one year, and there was a girl that used to come to the school because I think certain schools didn't have summer school. So like if someone needed to go to school, I think that they either like got left back or their parents had to pay for them to come to our school to go to summer school. So I remember there was this girl that came to our school, and she was in my class, and I remember she got dropped off every single day by like this Hummer. And this is when like Hummers were like super popular. So she was like super quiet, super to herself. She was like very pretty. And I don't remember exactly how we started speaking, but we started speaking, and of course the same guy friend would end up questioning about her, like asking me questions and things like that. But I would just tell him like no, like, you know. And because he was like super like popular and things like that, everybody like knew what type of time he was on. So I just was like, no, like, you know. But we were just, all three of us were like just cool. And I'm gonna name her Hazel. So I got my first best friend, I got T that I'm close with, and then I had Hazel. Like, so three best friends. So Hazel, again, she went to a different school, but when we became close, she would come to my house or whatever, and we would hang out and things like that. And eventually she would come over, and sometimes, you know, she would spend the weekend, and she'll stay over to the point where, again, she would stay over days at a time, to the point where she like had her own drawer in my rooms. So she became very close with my family as well. My first best friend, she had moved out, so she wasn't there. So when Hazel was sleeping over, my first best friend had just moved out. Well, she moved out some time before that. So yeah, so imagine it was three of us, like the three musketeers, the triplets. We had our own room, to eventually I ended up getting my own room, and then that's the time when like me and Hazel became cool, and she ended up staying over, sleeping over, and things like that. And she ended up like having her own car. So she, at a point, I think at first she used to get dropped off, and then she got her own car to where she was able to like come over on her own. And yeah, so remember in high school I was just like going through so many emotions and things like that. So her and T, they were my saving grace. Like, they, just thinking about it now, I literally thank God for them, because if they were not there like during that time, like they were literally there for a reason, I don't know what would have happened. And they weren't average friends. They went above and beyond for me, and that's how I know they were in my life for a reason. Like, they treated me, I don't know, they treated me the best. They really did. Like, they would make sure that I was getting stuff done. I learned so much from them, and they would take care of me and just make sure that I was like in a good mood. And this is like without them even knowing like what I was going through and things like that. But anytime I was like down, they would always be the opposite energy of what I was. And outside of me treating them like family, it's like I didn't really have much to reciprocate. Again, I didn't really know better. They were doing things like, I remember when Hazel had got her second car. So like her first car was like, you know, just like a regular car. But then her first car was like a regular car, and like her second car was like a brand new, what year was that? Let's say 2012. She had a brand new like 2012 Lexus. She taught me how to drive though. When I first met her, I did not have my driver's license, and I didn't even have a permit. And no, I had my permit, but I did not like driving because I was like super nervous. But she would force me to drive. Like, she would force me to drive her car around Lakeview. And I remember I went to go take my driving test. I didn't have that much experience because I was only driving in Lakeview, but I had no like real experience on like how to parallel park and things like that. So when I went to take my driving test, it was just me winging it basically, and I had failed. I remember I came home, I like went in my bed, put the sheets over my head, and she had came in and she was just like hyped, and she didn't know that I failed. So when I had told her, she didn't believe me. And I remember, I think I had gave her like the slip of paper or whatever, and she just remembered. I remember her being like, get up, get out of bed. We're still gonna like do whatever. And she would just like encourage me every time like I was down or I wasn't feeling the best. Like in that moment, if I was by myself, I probably would have been so like depressed into myself. But she randomly like popped up because I didn't even think she had all the access to the house. So like she could literally just walk through the door and like come to my room. So I think at that time I had literally just got in and she came through the door, came in my room, busted in and just like was trying to like get my energy up. And just like little stuff like that at a important time in my life, because like getting your driver's license was like super big. She was like really there to get my energy up, and she was just like always that type of person. And I appreciate her so much for that. So yeah, fast forward, she ended up getting her brand new car or whatever. I think eventually I ended up passing my test the second time. She would literally let me use her car to go and see my little boyfriend or whatever, the same boyfriend that I had that I went to prom with. And the same thing with T. Like she had a brand new car as well. Clearly they were both spoiled because she had a brand new car as well, and she would like she lived around the corner from me, so, and I would hate for her parents to see this, but she would leave the car key in the mailbox, and I would walk to the house, get the car key, take the car to go drive to Elmont, and then drive back and then put the key back. Like that was crazy. That was really crazy now that I think about that. But they trusted me. They trusted me. That was crazy. But that's what I mean. Like my childhood, it was, or like even my teenage years, I had cool experiences and I had great friends, but even throughout all that, I was still battling a lot of stuff. So if I did not have the support that I did as far as like cousins, friends, like my best friends and things like that, I literally don't know what or how I would have got through. So I'm super grateful for that, because a lot of people don't have that, or they may be getting bullied or a different type of story. Like that wasn't my story, but I still was battling a lot that I had no idea about. But literally God had sent these people in my life for a reason. I'm sure of that, hands down. On top of those two, I also had my guy best friend who had a car as well. And he would take me places that I needed to go as well. And how he would, I guess back then, it was just like cool at that time to have like a guy best friend that would like look out for you. And then, he had his own car, so he would drop me off to that same little boyfriend that I had. And, they didn't have cars, so it just looked like, oh, she has a guy friend that has a car. And I remember there were times where, my guy friend would just like hype me up about certain things. Like, don't let me get my hair done. Like, I'm getting my hair done, or I'm getting some new sneaker or something, and he is hyping me up. Like, and it would be annoying. It would be annoying to me, because I'm like the super shy person, and he does not hesitate to like be loud and just make jokes and just give you like words of affirmation. That was the type of person that he was. So I'm just like super glad that I had that type of person in my corner as well. So yeah, my circle of friends, they were great. They were literally like the best friends that I could have had, and I couldn't even repay them at that time. I feel like I was not the best friend whatsoever. I didn't know how to communicate. Some time had went past, and I ended up cutting off Hazel and T at a certain point for two totally different reasons. It just goes to show that I just really did not know how to be a friend. I didn't know how to be a friend. I didn't know how to be a girlfriend. There was like no blueprint for me. I literally just would cut them off for whatever the reasons were, and I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to express myself. I didn't even know how to like sympathize. So I didn't even know how to say, okay, tell me how you feel, or even see their situation and say, oh, like, hey, they may be going through something. And they were always there for me, and I needed to be there for them. And I feel like I wasn't. I wasn't. And looking back at it now, I feel bad. Of course, I can't go back in time, but there's conversations that could have taken place that would have avoided the breakup, or it could have rekindled the breakups, because I really just like didn't know any better at all, literally. And even when they were close with my family and things like that, my parents would ask questions like, where's so-and-so, or where are they? But it wasn't like they went deep enough to really see like what happened, or they said, oh, this is what you should do. So I wasn't really being taught on how to like rekindle certain relationships or how to like express myself. They were just very on the surface, just like, oh, where are they? Oh, they're like family. And that was it. It wasn't like you should have a talk with them or you were wrong or they didn't even get to see like what the issue was. It wasn't anything like that. So I felt bad in the sense of it didn't have to end at all, or especially the way that it did. It would be the same thing with relationships eventually. And the thing is, at that time, I could have cut you off and I would like boo-hoo cry behind closed doors, but I would not go back. Like it would hurt me so bad, but I also didn't know anything about like people talking it out or getting back together. I just thought that when you break up and you move on. Like I didn't know anything about breaking up, and accountability was not like a thing for me. Like I had no idea about any of that at all. So I remember when I would see people in like high school where they would break up, and one time like someone that I know, they broke up and then they got back together, and I remember looking like, oh my gosh, that's a thing? I just thought that you just move on from the situation. But it was so embedded in me that it was just like a thing for me to do. Just cut people off like that, cut them off. So that was horrible, by the way. The friendships I care about, the boys, whatever. But the friendships are the things that are like super important to me, because those type of friendships are so hard to come by. People that like genuinely care for you and just wanna give you the best or do the best for you without in return. It's hard to find like genuine friendships like that, and I feel like I definitely did myself a disservice by cutting them off. I remember I had another close friend who lived not too far from us that eventually ended up moving out of town after we graduated high school, and I remember she ended up getting pregnant. And at this time, I was working at Lord & Taylor. I don't think I mentioned that in the last video. Listen, I had a lot of jobs. I was working at Lord & Taylor, and I remember she had a baby shower coming up, and I was just so used to keeping busy. Remember, I just was like obsessed with working, that I remember Lord & Taylor, they had like this cute polo onesie jacket thing that looks like a teddy bear, like a little onesie jacket thing. It was so cute, and I bought that to give to her, but I decided to like choose an extra shift over going to her baby shower. And back then I just looked at it like, oh, she'll understand, it's work. But now I'm just like, I didn't realize the importance of supporting your friends, like being there for her. I should have told my job no and went to the baby shower. But back then again, it didn't even click in my head. I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna get this cute gift for her, and she'll be good, she'll understand. So selfish of me. I was super selfish like back then. I was like super selfish back then. And I think that was more so growing up as a twin and then a triplet, and having to share certain things, like share your space, share toys, share your room, share clothing, like, wear same color clothes and things like that. I just felt like when the time came for me to be independent, I didn't want to share anything. And I was just like a super selfish friend, a super selfish girlfriend, and it just, again, did me a disservice in like my relationships and my friendship. But yeah, I had like zero accountability, zero, like none whatsoever. I didn't know what that was, and I was just like living in my own little world. And that type of attitude carried over to like when I moved to Atlanta in 2020. Me and my first best friend, we were the closest. Of course, we've been friends since second grade, but in 2020 we became like the closest that we've ever been. Emotionally, we were visiting each other more and more. We just became very close. I remember just showing some type of sympathy. She had surgery one time, and I had like dropped off surprised her like her favorite ice cream and things like that. And even like little stuff like that was like a big deal for me, and she appreciates little kind gestures, so that meant a lot for her. The end of 2020, when I ended up moving to Atlanta, I cut her off, and I'm thinking about it now. I have no idea like what reason that was. I think there was something that I had an issue with, and I just didn't know how to express myself, so I just cut her off. just think about, I've cut off these friends, boyfriend. I've known her since second grade. So she was like my last best friend standing. And that was just like a super toxic thing to do. At the time that we were the most vulnerable, I basically ghosted her, and like I didn't even tell her I was moving. Like that was crazy. That just goes to show that I was like clearly just super selfish and I didn't care. So I had cut her off, and when I had moved to Georgia initially, I was like super depressed all over again because I just felt like I wanted more and I didn't have like any friends. Of course, I have family and things like that, but I just felt like things weren't going right for me. And when I had got the first job that I told you about that I bombed initially, Aisha, I thank God for her because she looked out for me in a way that those same friends that I told you about, that was like my teenage years, early 20s. So now in my late 20s, she basically taught me how to be a friend. That was like the first time, like as a true adult, that I knew like how to care for somebody, how to like listen, sympathize, and that it didn't cost much just to like show someone that you care or that you support them. So I really do appreciate Aisha, and I don't think that she knows how much she means to me. Not only did she give me my first job in Georgia, she just doesn't understand how much I appreciate her as a person and how much that I do love her. And we still speak to this day. Of course, I'm not like as consistent, but oh my gosh, she is so sweet. She looked out for me and she genuinely cares. She goes above and beyond like for her friends and for her people, and I just appreciate her so much. So if she's watching this, then it means a lot. If you saw these other videos, it means a lot, and I probably haven't expressed it to you how much it means, but yeah, I don't even know how to explain the type of friend that she is, but she's the best. Aside from that, I met some girls when I went to school, and it was two or three girls there, and Miss Brittany, Shanae, and Aaliyah, and again, we're all around the same age. I love the dynamic because we became so close that I've learned stuff about myself there, and that's why I say that school period was like very rough, but I'm glad that I went there because I've learned so much about myself as well. Like I know there were times when TMI, but like when it was at that time of the month for me, I would just be mean and snappy and have an attitude, and that was the first time that I realized that that's how I was during that time of the month. And they called me out on it. They would just be like, oh my gosh, you're acting like such a B word. Are you on your thing? And every month, because we spent 12 months together, I didn't know that I had no accountability partners. Like, remember, because I cut everybody off. So I did not know that like around that time of the month that I heard of it, but I didn't know that was me, you know? So that's what I learned about myself as well. So when that time comes, I catch myself being like very snappy, and literally 12 months of them calling me out on it. And that's why I love them, because I never had that accountability as an adult, like for someone to like call me out. And I know they love me. So like they would call me out and be like, you're acting like a B. And then just, you know, we would laugh about it. But that's when I started to realize that about myself, like, oh my gosh, like I really am acting like this, and I really do have an attitude around this time period. But yeah, I thought that was like not part of my like routine until they called me out on it, and I realized it to this day. So I learned a lot about myself during that school experience as well. And then with the job at the high rise that I worked out in Colony Square, there was this girl that I worked with that everyone at the office called her Spicy. Alejandra, I love you. But I remember that I used to just like watch and study her and see how she was when she interacted with people when she was upset. Like she would be mad and super upset, but she still knew how to express herself. She still knew how to like calm herself down to the point where she knew how to get her words out and say how she actually felt. And I remember looking at her like, wow, I'm so amazed, because I was the type of person that if I was upset, I would just be quiet. Like, don't talk to me. You get the silent treatment. And that's like not very mature. I think that some people glorify it, but there's really strength and power in being upset and still being able to express yourself. And that is something that I learned from her. And I remember one time, I think I had asked her to come in the hallway, and I pulled her aside, and I remember telling her like, I really appreciate you. Like, I don't think you understand what you've done, you being yourself. You've taught me a lot. You've taught me how to communicate with people even when I'm upset. And I don't think she understands. I don't know what she thought back then. And this was what, 2 years ago probably. And imagine the shy girl that like used to be so cold hearted. I eventually built up, my communication skills and things like that. But literally every job I said taught me something, or every experience taught me something. So if she saw my previous videos now and understanding my background and I think I tried to tell her I used to be super shy, super quiet and things like that. She probably doesn't know to what severity, but if you're watching this, like, I really meant that. I really did not know how to express myself. I really admired her so much, and I feel like I was at that job for a reason, specifically to like learn certain things. And I remember just thanking her, and even doing that, just showing like gratitude to people was very big for me. So yeah, I appreciate her for that. So the fallout that I had with T was like years before 2020. And so 2020 was like my first journey to getting to learn me and become a better person outside of that funk during all of those years. 2020 was like the first year, 4 years ago, that I was slowly climbing out of that dark hole that I was in. I ended up reaching out to T, and I'm just like super grateful that she responded, and she was super sweet, super understanding. Of course, I don't know really like how she felt, but I do appreciate her even answering, because she did not have to answer me at all, and she did. And we had a conversation, and we even spoke about like eventually meeting up. Even though we never did, it still meant a lot that she was open to hearing me out and having that conversation with me. Then in 2023, I think it was, I was planning a memorial for a family member or a close family friend, and I wanted her to be a part of it because we grew up together and we had like the same friends, so I wanted her to be there. So I remember, again, this was like the journey of me just like having the courage to do certain things. So I had reached out to her and haven't spoken to her in maybe 2 or 3 years. I'm like super grateful that she answered, and she agreed to have a phone conversation with me. And I remember being on the phone with her. We were just talking about the situation, and she let me have the floor first. I remember apologizing for like what I did, and we just spoke for a long time on the phone. Like, I remember hearing her cry and feeling bad, like, wow, you were really out here hurting people, and just so selfish to the fact that like I had no accountability and no sympathy for it. I just was just cutting people off with no care in the world, like just being super cold-hearted. And again, with guys, I didn't care that I was like that with them, but like for these friends that really truly cared and loved me, for me to just like cut them off with no explanation, like that was like crazy. And just like hearing her crying on the phone and her telling me how much it hurt her, like that was like tough. But with her, we're close to this day. We can like not talk for weeks, and then she is literally, I love having conversations with her. She is so funny. Like, we're just like big kids. Like, anytime we like meet up and get on the phone, it's just hilarious, and I'm just grateful for that. And then this year, well, 2024, I ended up losing that same guy friend that I was talking about, and that was the only person that I did not get to mend the relationship with. And his loss hit me hard because he was the only friendship that I don't get that time back. I don't get to um it really hurt me. I was like crying for days, and I couldn't sleep. And and it's so crazy because the time that he passed, I had a dream that same night, um, around the same time that he had passed. And that was just a very crazy experience. And yeah, that was the only friend that I never got to rekindle with. And I took that very hard. But through that, because him and Hazel were engaged, so I ended up being able to attend his funeral, of course, to send my condolences. And Hazel was there, of course, and I was able to have a conversation with her. I remember one time my mom wanted to like go get a car or something, and they drove like out the state to go. He drove my mom to like go get the car for her and things like that. And he was just like super loving, such a family oriented person, and I wanted to respect her. So I remember reaching out to her before I had went, and I just remember being so hurt because I'm like, you know, you hear life is short, and I clearly took the situation for granted because we lost him. And I'm just like grateful that when I reached out to her, she was just welcoming, and I expressed to her that I wanted to come to the funeral, and she was okay with it. So I ended up flying out to New York, and I saw her, and to me she looked exactly the same. Like, it was just like so crazy. She looks exactly the same, smiling like always. And I'm just like, again, I was so grateful for that I was able to, you know, just mend these friendships, and now they have like a baby girl. Things like that means a lot to me because these people that I was so close with, coming over whenever you want, you're spending time with my family, it's just not a normal friendship, and I took that for granted. And the fact that she was able to just be very welcoming and then invite me to, you know, their daughter's birthday party, and I'm just like super grateful. Today it is January 1st, so it's New Year's Day, and the time that this video comes out, I think I would have already been to the birthday party. But I would have never been able to reach out and just be such a bold person if I didn't work on myself. If I was still like that selfish person and I didn't care to like better myself or learn how to communicate and express myself, I would have never been able to have the confidence to reach out to these people and apologize. And now I'm just like such an integral person that I feel good with knowing that even if they didn't respond, I was willing to reach out to them to apologize for the things that I did and for hurting them and just abandoning our friendship, even though they treated me so good and they were great friends and I was not the best friend. I'm blessed that they responded and that I'm in the position that I am now with them, as far as like them being able to hear me out. And even though I didn't get to have that last conversation with my guy friend, I didn't feel good at first, but it took some time, and I feel good with knowing that, like, you know, God knows my hurt and he sees like what I'm doing with mending like these other friendships, and just, you know, just constantly wanting to be a better person, to not make the same mistake, and just be very intentional about like who I let in my life and the certain conversations that I'm having. But that's why I so said that the jobs that I had, they were more than just job to me, because the people that I met, the experiences that I had with Aisha just being super kind, super loving, and being supportive, to Alejandra just teaching me how to, without even knowing, how to communicate and just be so bold and get your point across without shutting down or being super upset. Yeah, it meant a lot to me, more than they would ever know. Seriously. So I appreciate everybody that had something to do with my journey, even though I'm still on the journey. Also know that like if you do plan on reaching out to like any old friends to apologize, don't expect them to answer. Don't go into the conversation expecting anything. Just go in there with a good heart, letting them know how you felt and what you were going through, and apologize, like not to receive anything, but just to let them know. And eventually, if they feel like it's genuine, then okay, then they'll decide, okay, I would love to have a friendship with you again. But even them accepting your apology should be good enough. If they don't answer, then that just says a lot about them, but definitely don't expect anything back. Do it for you. Don't do it for them. Mostly, like, it's a plus if they are willing to have the conversation with you and respond, but if they don't, then you just did what you could do. But I just pretty much wanted to end off with, it's never too late to learn things. It's never too late to be a better mom, a better sister, a better daughter, a better friend. Like, it's never too late to improve yourself. Learn how to communicate. Pay attention to yourself. Like, why do I get so irritated? Why do I get an attitude? Pay attention to the things that people are saying. Why do you get so irritated quickly? Or why do you have an attitude when I ask you about this? Just start to question, okay, why do I get an attitude when they ask me about this person, or when they ask me about this? Why do I get irritated quickly? And ask yourself like all these whys, and you just have to be very intentional. Like, okay, if I want to be a better person, I need to see why I do these things. And then the next step is improving those things. Like, after you figure out the why, or maybe you don't know the why, just try and pay attention moving forward. Pay attention to your emotions and figure out, like, there's so many books, there's so many podcasts, there's so many things that you could watch to better yourself, or even use social media for that as well. Like, use social media for the good things. Like, see how people interact with their friends. I'm not talking about like the gift giving, but hear people's stories on like how they're good friends, and see what type of friend you want to be. Also, see what type of friend you want to be, and see what type of friend they need you to be. And I just think it's just important to figure out why and take action on that if you do want to become a better person. And little by little, you'll start to realize that your life is like being elevated, because you're figuring out these whys for everything, mentally, physically, emotionally. Like, why do I eat this? Why do I say this? Why do I do this? Why don't I believe this? And then you figure out what it is that you do want to improve. And those things like take time. You don't have to go to school to learn something. You don't have to go to school to learn about yourself. So those are things that are always going to be beneficial. For sure. I'm telling you, life would be so much easier, so much peaceful, so much better. Like, you're never too good to correct yourself. Like, never. There's always something to improve. We're all going to make mistakes, but it's about the corrections that you make and taking accountability. I had no idea what accountability was, for real. My boyfriends will tell you that. But I had zero accountability. Like, I really did not know anything outside of myself, and I didn't know that there were things to improve. I used to think that, oh, I'm me, like, it is what it is type of attitude. But truthfully, that is like not cute. It's not attractive. And the more that you work on yourself, the better you attract. You probably realizing why you keep attracting the same people, the same type of friends. It's because you're, well, the bad company, I should say. You're just like not improving. Like, and integrity is like such an important thing in my life, to the fact that when I do realize that I've done something wrong, I do try to correct it. And now I'm in the point where I've done the corrections to the best of my ability. I'm in the point where I'm just being super intentional about the conversations and things that I do. So I want to be recognized as someone that's like super integral. And I realized that I actually got complimented on that, you know, and I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I wanted to be a better person. And it took years for me to get where I am now. And I'm just like super grateful, because just deciding, taking the step to become better each day, it shows. But I just know I want to be the best daughter, sister, aunt. I'm consistently working. Like, I just want to make genuine connections, but I can't do that without any corrections. I just want healthy friendships and relationships. I want to lead by example, and people that know me and probably didn't understand who I was, or they do see the person that I was, and now I'm just to myself. And again, I'm very to myself because I'm literally just trying to be a better person. I want to bring good to people's lives. Like, I don't want to go into certain situations or certain relationships with the negative energy that I had before. Or I wasn't totally negative, but again, zero accountability. But eventually I do want to be a mom, and I do want to be a wife. So in order to be the best that I can, I have to put the work in. Like, you're going to have to put the work in. You can't escape it. And if there are people that love you, they're going to understand that the journey that you're on. And if they don't, then bye. Like, they're not the people that are supposed to be around you. I just don't want to ever leave this earth with not addressing things where I may have hurt somebody. And that's basically what these years were about. Like, they were about just me correcting my wrongs and unlearning things that I thought were good things, and now learning things that are good things. And the next step for me is to implement it. I stay mostly to myself because I take connections very seriously. I don't call many people my friends, and if I do, they're like family to me, and they mean a lot. And any guy that I meet moving forward is intentional. I want to be married. I want to have kids. So that was always important to me. Every relationship that I was in, marriage was always a topic. But I'm glad that none of them led to marriage, because I didn't know what it took to be a wife. I've had certain people say, like, you know, your wife and things like that, or, you know, the outside looking in, but they literally did not know like how my attitude was, or how I didn't know how to express myself. So I had to put that work in. I was not the best girlfriend, and I just wasn't. I didn't reciprocate certain things. I just recently heard something where someone said that girls like to be loved how their dad loved them, and that just kind of clicked in my head, because to me, I'm thinking like how my dad, loved me like growing up. And, he was Jamaican. He had two jobs. So he was provider. He was always busy. So, I always look for a guy that's like super busy. And like he always made sure that we ate very well and that we got money when it was time to like go shopping and things like that. So those were the things that I like was receiving, but I wouldn't reciprocate like what, a true wife or girlfriend. I don't feel like I brought what I could have brought to the table. And of course, with a lot of work and growth, I realized that now. So through these years, I've been like doing the work. Like it's been 2 years since I've been in like a serious relationship, but I've been taking like these 2 years to just see what it takes to be a wife. So like learning all the things that I've learned, unlearning all the things that I've learned, and implementing certain things. Um, I'm finally at the space where I know like what it takes, and I'm definitely not in a rush to be in a relationship, because there's some things that I'm working on, because I do think it's important to choose the right spouse. But if I didn't go through all of that work and all of those things, I just would not be in the space that I'm at now. Every relationship, every friendship, every like heartbreak or whatever. So if anybody like has any questions or any advice on like what I did or my journey, or just, just want to have a conversation about it, I'm definitely here. I don't bite. My DMs are open. So you could DM me, email me, you could reach out, and yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching.